Welcome back, everybody. This is After the Roll, discussing The Legend of Vox Machina, Season 1, Episode 5, Fate's Journey. I am Travis J. Croken, and I'm being joined by my fellow co-hosts, who will introduce themselves now.
I am LJ Stanton.
I am Billy Pomerleau.
Fantastic. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing well.
Yeah?
Doing well. I don't have a cat on my lap. He's hanging out back there. So less well than Billy, but doing well.
I don't have a cat on my lap either, so
Yeah.
that's sad.
So Billy wins.
I'm
Yeah,
sad.
she's making life real difficult.
Is that the mug destroyer?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The destroyer of mugs, the shatterer of ceramics.
She demands attention, and when she doesn't get it,
You know, it's the orange ones.
yeah.
It's the orange ones. They like destroying things, apparently.
I've never had an orange cat. My buddy had an orange cat named Crusher, and it was hilarious. It was actually a lot like your cat, Billy. It was long-haired orange
Like
cat.
Dr. Beverly Crusher.
I
Actually,
presume.
yeah, I think that is what it was named from. So, because we are that old. So, well, some of us are. At
Wait,
least.
do you have to be old for that?
To watch it when it
Star
first
Trek.
came out, yes. To watch
Okay,
the
well,
episodes
you don't have
live.
You don't have to watch it live to want a cat named Crusher.
No, but the sad thing is we did.
Okay, well, yeah. Old.
I'm not even going to deny it. I mean, I've got the white in my beard. That's the thing that's sad is I've got, like, I have to wear a mask when we go places now. So there's some places you walk in and they go to ID you, and normally I'm like, I've got really the white, but now the mask covers it. So, anyways, let's jump into this. Legend of Vox Machina, Episode 5, Fate's Journey. What did you all think of it? I loved it. There was so much, so many promises made in the first episode that were kept during this episode that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I'm going to keep some of it to myself, but I felt like this episode just felt a lot better to me personally than the last episode.
Interesting. I have more bones to pick with this episode.
Interesting.
And if I wasn't cheering for the Briarwoods before, I really am now.
Yeah,
think
they
that's
took
fair.
things to a different level.
Uh,
Most definitely. I can see, I mean, there was some really good foreshadowing in this episode that paid off beautifully immediately. Like, it's always good to have, and that's something I think a lot of people can miss in their writing is when you're foreshadowing, you don't have to be foreshadowing something far, far off in another book or at the end of the book or 16 chapters away. You can foreshadow something and have a pretty quick turnaround once in a while. You don't want it to be always within a couple of scenes, but especially if you've got a subtle way of foreshadowing, being able to do a couple with quick turnaround allows people to realize that, oh, okay, this is going to pay off somewhere down the road. And I find they do that really well with this show.
they prime people with it, I think, is that when you have the foreshadowing that is the quick turnarounds, it does start training your viewers or your readers to start looking for foreshadowing. So you start having those moments of like, oh, well, they said this was going to happen 2 chapters ago or 10 minutes ago. So what things are happening now that aren't necessarily paying off or just through, being done for what seem to be kicks, but maybe could pay off later down the road.
And what stuff
And
have
I
missed?
I like it when you start training people.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a good thing too. Like a good point is not, you don't have to start training people right off the start. If you start training someone halfway through a book or partway into a book, then, or a show, then that will trigger them to go back and be like, oh, okay, this is really cool. What else did I miss? And you get the rereads, you get the rewatches, you get the, so toss in the foreshadowing, hit them over the head with it a little bit later on. So we all have bones to pick. We all have things I'm sure we really like about this. But let's get into it. What did the first scene was Vex and Vax being chased by the guards through the town streets. I have to say, at first I was a little bit confused because yes, the Sovereign is pissed at them and wants them captured, but they just fought off these evil creatures and saved one of the guards at least, And he is like, I'm going to explain this, go ahead and go. And then they have this scene where they're outside and saying goodbye to Trinket, leaving Trinket tucked in behind and like left behind. And now all of a sudden they're on a mad dash run away from the guards. Which to me was, I understand why they're running, but it was a little confusing. It seemed a little bit choppy here or there.
So I thought I actually didn't mind that because mostly in the second watch that I had, it made me question what went down then between Captain Jareth and the Sovereign. Because obviously, if they're being chased by guards, then he was not able to explain well what happened that night. So I'm really interested now to see what happened to him. Like, is he thrown in a dungeon and rotting somewhere? Has he been hung for treason? Like, what has happened to him if Vox Machina is still being chased down by guards as if they're just common thugs? So I have more questions now because of that. So, and that's, I like having questions.
So I am actually able to forgive this one more so than it makes me question more about the last episode. When we were discussing this last week, there were things going in my mind because I think, Travis, you brought up that they were still in the Sovereign's palace or something. And I went back and watched it again, and it is mentioned numerous times that they are in their keep that entire time. They're in their keep, locked up. And so they leave their keep twice in that episode at the end. At the end of the night, they leave the keep, and then they leave the keep in the morning. And now they're apparently leaving the keep to go shopping. I find the continuation of the ending of that episode and the beginning of this episode to be the most sus out of all of it. That being said, like LJ, I liked the idea of, Jared just failed in his mission, so that's why they're being chased in the streets now. Otherwise, I don't know what they're doing.
Well, and then that begs the question is, how strong is Silas's mind control? Mm-hmm. Right? If the Sovereign can go in and see the keep being absolutely decimated and black blood everywhere and people like torn apart in really grotesque, weird ways that are not natural.
But would he go? Would he go? Because I would assume that the captain goes to report to him and his response is just going to be these are bullshit excuses, you failed at your job.
I would think that if again, it depends on how strong the mind control is, but I would think if someone comes to me and says, hey, we got attacked by 3 undead skeletons that were floating and moving through walls, come with me, I'll show you the proof. It'd be a little premature to be like, no, you're an idiot. Go, you're in the break. But if the mind control is that strong,
smart. We've already seen that.
Yeah.
He's not the brightest.
I would point out that he walked in on the carnage at the end of episode 3, where Vox Machina had the absolute shit knocked out of them and were like bleeding on the ground, and he blamed them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have to agree that
not the smartest, and the power has got to be strong.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's the thing is Silas has been shown to be very powerful, even if it is kind of less so than Delilah. His magic is still nothing to shirk at. So I think that this just goes to show that brainwashing is very much ingrained at the moment of the Briarwoods can do no wrong and do not pursue them, don't do anything that would impede in their plans in any way, shape, or form. And that is including trying to keep Vox Machina from, getting away.
Well, go ahead.
No. Silas even mentions at the dinner that it was even easier than he expected. So that makes me think that Uriel is just, a little bit soft in maybe psychic protection and was unable to fight off his charms. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be, especially, you kind of see that too, where he was just like, I like bears. I love bears. I like bears. They have a bear. But the thing is that this also could
I hired them because they have a bear.
Yeah. This could also be a thing, like there could be another step involved in this. It could have been that Garrett comes back to them and says, look, this is what happened, and this all got destroyed, and they've left, and perhaps Sovereign was okay with that and was like, you know what, fine, where are they now? Like, I understand, that's great, so whatever. Well, they went to go after the Briarwoods. And that would trigger the guards again, because he's got in his head that you have to protect the Briarwoods at all cost. So he could have been cool with them doing what happened, until he finds out that, well, they've actually also not only are chasing down the Briarwoods and left their keep, but they've also completely shirked their duties, because their job is to defend the Sovereign's territory, and they're not there to do that anymore. So they've kind of stepped out 3 times.
Could also be the bureaucratic mess of the fact that it takes a lot of time to get orders to go from the top down. So it wouldn't surprise me if they just haven't, the guards in the city just haven't gotten the, by the way, no, they're cool. Don't pursue them. Which I don't think happened. I think that it's just a case of Uriel did the, no, you failed at your job. Yeah. We'll go and have them arrested again. Yeah. So
that does make sense. But I love the fact that you don't realize that Keyleth is with them right away.
Yeah.
That was really neat. They run up to the gate, and then she runs down their arm, and I thought that was a cute little surprise. And again, there's a lot with Keyleth in this episode, and a lot of her anxiety and her reactionary work and all that stuff. There's a lot that tied into it. But then we get to see Gilmore,
everyone's favorite traitor,
with his flash and his fanfare going through. Yeah. Everyone's favorite traitor. A traitor. I was going to say, traitor. Yeah, trade. Yes. Everyone's favorite trader.
Merchant.
That does not value his friends very much, from the sound of it.
I mean, I personally don't value friends who try to steal from me. So, especially with the and you were going to leave an IOU, and all of them just being like, we hadn't thought that far. Yeah, no. I feel him keenly on this episode of just the stealing from me again, huh? Because it totally felt like an again moment.
And I wouldn't go as far as to say that they're friends. They constantly go in there and have Vax flirt with him to get things. I don't see a lot of friendship in that per se, as much as a kind of flirtatious business arrangement.
You're not friends with people that flirt with you?
Not usually.
Usually? Or no? I have questions about the phrasing here.
I stand by my phrasing.
Yeah, there's actually some interesting phrasing in this episode, which I loved. That scene with Scanlan.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Which one? There's so many.
When he was reading the book, he's like, oh yeah, that other one would have been really, no. But we're going to get to that. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love, and again, just the way Gilmore arrests them, or captures them. And the fact that it's so off, just perfectly timed with Keyleth, but being bad is so fun. And they're pulled up.
Yeah.
Again, timing, the comedic timing in this stuff is absolutely fantastic. But what are all your thoughts about what happened in Gilmore's shop?
I still love the casual magic. Because he just does so much with so little. It looks like it's zero effort from him. And there's so much that he does at every turn. Just conjuring shit out of midair. And, he's got, his ghost creature butler thing. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But it's the, here, it's going to just bring me tea. I'm going to just entrap you guys. We've got clearly magical traps all over the place. It's not taxing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't complain about any scene that's inside of Gilmore's Glorious Goods. It's so colorful, it's so fun, the character's fun, the quips are fun. It's man, let's just have a show called Gilmore's Glorious Goods.
I would watch the hell out of that.
Would that be like a Pawn Stars but with Gilmore?
I would definitely watch the hell out of that. But again, even with this scene, the cinematography is amazing. When he captures them, it could have just been a blast of light that lights everything up, but you see the poof, 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 of the lights lighting up and the shop kind of coming to life as he comes down the stairs. And I find the planning, the cinematography, the angles, the shots, all this stuff is absolutely gorgeous.
And I mean, he's theatrical. It's wonderful. That man is not one to just take the expedient or what's the word that I'm looking for? Simple way out. It's just the like, is there an extravagant, gorgeous way to make this point? Yes, Gilmore is doing it that way then.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And it does a great job also showing the personalities again. Like when Keyleth wanders over and gets her fingers stuck in the dragon finger cuffs.
Yeah.
And I really actually, that scene, because I watched it a couple times, and that scene really, I had LJ ringing in my ears when she gets frazzled and sits down, and he's like, do you need some help with that? And she's like, no, I'm just going to stay like this forever. I'm fine. And it's like, yeah, she just does not want anyone to notice that she's in trouble, and she doesn't want to deal with the fact that she's in trouble, and she doesn't want anyone to help her because she's in trouble. She's just, I'm just going to stay without the use of my hands for the rest of my life because I'm stupid, so it's fine.
I don't know whether you have me in your head because I would do the, Keyleth and her anxiety, or if it's because I would do the exact same thing of be like, I don't need anyone else's help. I can do it out on my own. Thank you very much. Even if it means I never use my hands ever again. Thank you.
Forever.
Well, it's just the last episode you were talking about how that's the thing with her, because we were talking about how she didn't, like, I was mentioning that she seemed like she noticed that there was something off with Pike, and she didn't say anything. And then we kind of discussed the fact that she's kind of the type like, okay, someone else is going to notice that. I don't need to bring the attention to myself and deal with it. It's going to be fine. And that was kind of really accentuated with this finger cuff thing. That.
Yeah. See, please don't make me the center of attention when I've made a mistake.
Yeah.
And yeah, her and Vax are, adorable.
Yeah. That's
very cute. Very, very cute.
Yeah.
Not in Vex's eyes. Vex is not so happy about that.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. She needs to calm down about change. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
She's
Well, it seems like a bit of PTSD tied in there, though. Like, she's trying to control, because some things that we don't know about, but we're learning about now, is there's some things really hectic and chaotic out of their control happened in their younger days. And that kind of gives a reason why she's such a control freak now, that she wants to control every aspect of everything. But to that end, it looks like we've got some relationships blooming. There's Scanlan and Pike. There's Vax and Keyleth. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's little more than the pepper box sparks flying between Vex and Percy.
Percy? Yeah.
Yeah.
They were pretty cute.
I don't know why you changed. I'm fully on board with Vaxie, so.
I mean, he's pretty clearly bi, so.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
But no, I'm thinking that it's Vex and Percy, which would be, they seem suited for each other.
But then,
with the little bit of bitchiness between the two of them.
But then what about Grog?
Well, he's got that relationship with the sandwich.
Oh, yeah. And almost like anything that comes his way.
Him and food and him and his axe. I don't think he needs anything else.
Yeah. Or the tongue of giant creatures. That's
the
makeout session I wasn't expecting in this episode.
Yeah. There's some tonguing and some tentacles. This was kind of the hentai episode, but
I made note of that as well. That was quite the quite the reaction.
I mean, okay, if you're gonna go, you might as well enjoy it. So I can't, you can't hate Scanlan for it, but at the same time, you're kind of doing now is not the time for this, Scanlan.
Especially when it's a demon dog thing, zombie creature, dude.
Demon chimera creature, yeah.
He is not picky in the least. I think we've discovered that over the course of these 5 episodes. That doesn't surprise me at all.
He is a beautiful pansexual gnome.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it's just, I love the fact that they don't hold back. There's not a situation where oh, why don't we do this? No, that's a step too far. It's yeah, okay, let's do it. If it exists, if it's out there, Scanlan is going to be into it in one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I want to know what the line is. Now I'm we're getting ahead of ourselves, but a 2-headed girl is not
there is no line.
I don't think so.
Like I think consent is where the line is, and that's about it. Like, I think Scanlan, that's the only thing that he ends at is consent.
Yeah. If you're into it, I'm down.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they get some really cool weapons from the shop. The explosive arrows. I would have liked, I don't know why, I would have liked to have seen the finger cuffs thing be like, I didn't see it thrown into the pile. Like, I don't know if it was just left or if she put it into her pocket.
It was left.
It was just like such a random scene. It was just almost like a gag for the sake of having a gag and setting up the scene between her and Vax. But I would love to see that come into play somewhere down the road. I think there's probably some really interesting stuff they could do with Scanlan in that thing. But
yeah.
So.
Yes. And it might not be his finger getting caught in that,
Exactly.
but yes.
We'd have to see. But yeah, and then there's the they get all their stuff and are charged an arm and a leg for it. And they find the...
What are you talking about? They got the Friends discount.
Yeah.
Friends Gilmore discount.
Exactly. And as Vex says, I'd hate to see what he charges his enemies.
Yup.
But there is the discount for the cart. That's the lovely broken down hole riddled cart that they get got for a steal.
Yes. The 5-finger discount.
Exactly. Yep. That's 2 5-finger discounts we've had in the show so far. We're only at episode 5. The other was
not bad.
5-finger discount.
Womp womp womp.
No. Bad dad joke counter needs to go up.
Oh, that's totally a thing. Mods. Do we have a mod that can jump on a bad joke counter?
Oh, no.
But we do, so they get into the cart, and then we have the fun stuff. So there's the Vex, and I love that resting bitch face comment that she has with Percy.
Oh,
that was such a good interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, like, I love his response. It is a magnificent bitch face, and it's the, like, I'm stealing that line. That is a beautiful line.
It is. And this is, I think, the most normal conversation that they've had between each other without dealing with some kind of drama or tragedy or something like that. This is the most just like rat-a-tat-tat conversation back and forth that they've had. And it's in such a stressful scenario as well.
I really think that this conversation was important in this episode because we've kind of been seeing a bad side of Vex for the past maybe episode and a half. She's been talking about ditching everyone multiple times. She's been getting really snippy with Keyleth, pretty snippy with Vax. It was nice to see her be nice and have a nice conversation for once.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that does come from her PTSD issues and the fact she is such a control freak, because you can see her doing a lot of the group mom things. She does a lot of the I'm controlling the situation, I'm looking out for everyone, and still looking out for her number one, which is, you know, her and Vax. So it is really nice to see her actually having a human interaction and a gentle interaction, even if it is laced with sarcasm and bitchiness, because it's also not just with Vax. It's with somebody else in the party now, finally, instead of it just being almost always filtering more personable interactions through her brother, because he interacts with everybody well, you know, like he gets into the finger fights with Scanlan, he jokes around with Grog, he can talk to Percy, he flirts with Keyleth very awkwardly because of course neither one of them want to admit that they're trying to flirt with each other, and he got along with Pike. So it's she let him have all of those moments, and she was staying the stoic boss one almost, and it was really nice to see her actually taking a break from that and talking to Percy as a person instead of just the how do I control and lead the situation even though we're following you into hell, basically.
Yeah. And I took that to be kind of as the episode progressed, I took that to be kind of a thing of a reflection of her, because we look at the last episode when they were in under lockdown, and she's talking to Vax, and she says, we've been in worse situations. Like Billy said, she's looking at leaving. We've been in worse situations, and they say yes, and whatever the name of the thing. I keep missing the name of their home. We don't know it's their home yet. But then this whole conversation that she's having with Percy is, I thought you'd be happier having you're going back to your home. And I then later on, when we find out that where they left was their father, and it seems like it was some kind of home thing that her and Vax had to leave really quick. And that kind of got me thinking at the end of the episode, like, well, is she actually pining for her home? Does she want to have the homecoming to go back? Or is there something for her to go back to? I don't know what that situation is yet. So it could have been kind of two lost souls, because we don't know a lot about Vex and Vax. So being away from where they were, having to flee and escape something, is this the kind of beginning of a commiseration? I understand having to leave everything behind or losing everything. And let's, I
think that's valid. And I think that it also explains some of her resentment for Keyleth, because last episode we got to hear about how, Keyleth does have a home to go back to. And she, they talk in this one that she's supposed to lead people. She's got a lot of weight and expectations on her, but she gets to be kind of the goofy one who doesn't have to do everything right, and she still has a family to go back to. She has a home, and, Vex doesn't have a home to go back to. She only has her brother. There's no family, and she has to, or she feels she has to, be the hyper responsible one. So you can see, I think, that she is trying to kind of commiserate with Percy in that way of I thought you'd be happier. Why aren't you happier? And in some ways, I think that the lack of foresight with her comment there of I thought you'd be happier because you're going home is because of her wishful thinking about wanting a home to go back to. Because I did find it odd how much people were kind of doing what's your home like? And what are we expecting? And all of these things, as if it was going to be somewhere that hasn't been tainted by the Briarwoods for however many years. And it was like, guys, it's being ruled by a sorceress and a vampire. It's not going to be good or pretty or wonderful. And it was just interesting to see the lack of foresight for this.
Yeah.
And I think it was mostly coming from a lot of the different wishful thinking that different characters have around the concept of home and what a home should be.
Yeah, good point. And this is the point where Billy is thinking quietly to himself, what the hell is with writers and digging way too deep into shit?
Sitting there doing, the curtains are blue, guys. They're just blue.
Sometimes it's just a light at the end of the dock. There's nothing more to it.
No, I'm not going to say anything.
But no, it's great to see that they do have, there's depth into this stuff. And who knew that the stuff that we would take in English class where take this story and break it apart, and who knew that would become something fun that we do to entertain people. Yeah. By digging into what did the writer think about this in this scene. But again, I'm always consistently impressed with the animation that they have in this. The animation is absolutely gorgeous, and it's just spot on for so many things they do. Even when they're in this stolen cart, and they have before the monsters come, Scanlan and Keyleth looking through the book, and Scanlan's beautiful translation of zipper twat. The only word he can transcribe is zipper twat.
Zipper twat.
Yeah.
There's no teeth down there, guys. I promise. There's no teeth.
There is a horror movie about that, though.
I know.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually surprisingly well done, but if anyone's seen it. The backstory for the whole thing was pretty interesting. They actually did it was a legitimate story. It wasn't just some goofy thing. They actually had a story behind it.
It was a story.
Yeah. But yeah, so they find out it's not a zipper twat, it's actually a ziggurat. And Keyleth mentions how she falls asleep all the time. Again, I found Keyleth to be really endearing and kind of adorable in this episode. We get to see her with her anxiety. We get to see things build out more. But then we also get, again, to see her in action when when the chips are down, her reactionary work is astounding. She can really react. She can really use her abilities if she's not forced or given an opportunity to think about it ahead of time. If she can't get into her head, she's fantastic at just flowing through and getting stuff done, which is awesome. Like, I think they're doing a great job at...
I have a bone to pick about that, but it's for slightly later.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course.
Yep.
But they have this chat where they talk about things, and then, of course, we also get the whispered one mentioned again. Mm-hmm. And I also liked the fly trap foreshadowing. When the that was beautiful.
I thought that was so cool. Carnivorous plants aren't used enough in animation, I think. And they've really set up such a good picture and such a good feeling before going into this. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that they used a pitcher plant instead of a Venus flytrap. That it was something that was, because that pitcher plants use this, the sickeningly sweet stuff that to draw everything in, and it's such a willing participant in your own death when you are death via pitcher plant that I really enjoyed just how beautifully done it is, that it's a 3-second moment, but just having the fly go in and just it's sitting there. There's no struggling. There's nothing awful going on, nothing dramatic. It's just it flies in and the lid closes. And that is exactly what's happening. And it's beautifully done.
Yeah. And yeah, it was gorgeous. I agree. I actually don't, it died. They don't last that long, but I actually almost always have a Venus flytrap in my office. And they're pretty cool. There's a lot to learn from them when you get to watch them. But yeah, pitcher plants are definitely a different beast because they have the decay of their previous prey that attracts
just
the new.
Sits in the bottom.
Yeah, and they did such a beautiful job with that. And again, talking about a rapid fire or the training foreshadowing, there's literally the next scene is things sliding off the rails for them.
But before then, we have Grog.
Oh yes, that's
right.
We
have to talk about Grog.
We have that scene.
Yeah,
again. Can Grog stop being the emotional foil in this show? He is supposed to be the big, dumb, goofy, happy guy, not the emotional foil.
Okay, but I like the fact that Vax looks over and goes, "Please tell me you're not shitting in another cart." And it's wait, another cart.
This is a story we need to go back to.
How many carts has Grog defiled by shitting in when they've been trying to use them for transport? I want the tally on this too.
Why won't they just pull over and let him go to the bathroom?
Exactly.
But again,
he forgets to ask.
Yeah.
But again, bringing in toilet usage. It's so amazing how many, especially fantasy books, that never cover the toilet. You've got these people going on these massive 6-month marches, fighting battles the entire way along the way, and no one ever has to stop to pee. There's never any mention
to be fair, I think some of that is part of the escapism and being careful with your word choice. There is a certain point where I think for some books and some stories that you can kind of hang a lantern on it and do the dude, give me 5, I need to pee. And that is fine. But I think for many stories, it's a level of vulgarity that you don't necessarily need, because we all know that it's something we do, and we don't necessarily need that in our fantasies.
It's a great way for an ambush, though.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that there are times when I think it's an interesting vulgarity to have and an interesting point to throw in there, since we all do it.
Yes.
We need more pooping. We need more pooping.
We do. And it's right. It's we all, like LJ said, we all do it. It's all a part of life, just like the tentacle porn, all that stuff. It's just what happens in everyone's life, right? Fun times. But no, that's...
Well, now we know it's in the folder on Travis's computer.
That's the locked folder.
I actually knew someone once who actually had their folder on their desktop that was just labeled pornography. And I was like, that's not actually like, is it like, oh yeah, I'm like, seriously?
It's just out in the open.
You don't have like golf swing tips labeled for it or something? Like something that no one's ever going to look into? That's just porn. Okay. But yeah, so there's that awesome scene with Grog where, again, the building up of the closeness and the relationships between all the different characters. And that Vax doesn't laugh it off, doesn't say you're being stupid, doesn't say you're being silly or anything like that. When Grog says,
Yep.
you know, like, it's not working, it's not working. Pike said I could talk to her and she would respond, or like I would be able to feel her, and she's not here.
And it's just so heart-wrenching because it is such a childlike moment for him. And I really feel like that with him, it's not even that he's unintelligent. I feel like in a lot of ways, it's almost as if there's a language barrier. Like it's whatever this common language is like a second language for him. So that there are times when it's he's taking something extremely literally because he doesn't necessarily know whether or not he should be taking it extremely literally. So it is just these kinds of moments are really cute then when he is taking it literally of she said I'd be able to feel her. She said that I'd be able to do this and she's not here and I can't, and just crying and being sad. And it's so genuine in its emotion, regardless of whether that's a true honest take on it or not. Like, even if it isn't, I like the idea that they've stolen moments from second language people who have those moments of I don't know whether this is a literalism or not. Which I think is neat.
Yeah, because he really doesn't take into nuance very often, or very well.
No.
And most of the time that he does have those quippy lines is when it is something that's a nuanced line or an offhand remark.
Yeah. As a note, the common language that everyone speaks is called Common.
I'm not surprised. Very original.
I mean, it's an easy way, right? You're not going to have anyone be like, well, why isn't it Turkish? It's the common language. Just stick with that. But yeah, and then I just love that thing where he's just like, you know, they say when Vax is like, you know, I'm not worried about her, she's going to be fine on her own. And Grog's just such an honest response of like, I know she's stronger than all of us. And he's like, I'm more concerned about us without her.
Yeah, you're walking into again, you're going to defeat a vampire and you don't have your paladin. Good luck, have fun.
Cleric.
Whatever. Cleric, paladin. Freaking goody two shoes, do-gooders. They're all fucking the same at the end of the day.
See, what LJ doesn't realize is that her favorite characters can't save her should things go sideways. I mean, they might be able to save her in a way that she doesn't want to be saved. Like, if you need to be healed, you can be healed and come back, but maybe not with all of your pieces.
I mean, who says I'm not okay with vampirism? I take it.
Maybe with extra pieces.
Yeah. There we go. Like the Chimera dog thing that was...
Those are fantastic.
They were
I
beautiful.
want one.
I spent so much time.
Next?
Like, I actually paused it and I was like, what is this made up of? Like, because at first I'm like, oh yeah, it's the skeleton tail. I'm like, no, that's not a skeleton tail. There's like barbs coming off the tail. And these creatures are so well designed.
Are you guys familiar with Resident Evil?
Yes.
Yes.
That's when I saw them for the first time, I was like, oh snap, I'm gonna have nightmares about this for a week.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. It was just like, oh, it's like my reaction and Keyleth's reaction were actually very similar in this situation of like, oh, it's the puppy. Oh my goodness, it's except where she started, you know, screaming and doing the, oh dear God, that's like a massive perversion of everything I hold dear. I was like, Estella's a puppy. I want like all of them. All of them. Like, I mean, yes.
Especially that first one that they see that's like walking out of the woods. That was the most puppy out of all of them.
Yes.
And I had no issues until the like alpha puppy opened its flower.
Its head.
Yeah, well, it's almost like a cross between a wolf and a demogorgon.
It was very Demigorgon-ish, which I liked, considering that, again, that's all very D&D and everything. Like, I liked the nod off to a little Stranger Things. But yeah,
I love the fact that it was, you want them. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want a group of these things running around with you?
Undead demon puppies, I'll take them.
And my cat would have a problem.
Not for long.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Chekhov would also have a problem. Like, I'm pretty sure he would be upset if I did the, hi, sorry, pup, you're being replaced by undead demon dogs. Sorry.
Demo puppies.
Yeah. I think there would be problems somehow.
But I love how they did them. I love the introduction of them and how they attack. And I really like the alpha. Let's just call it the alpha. That whole thing, like, as soon as it was staring down the wagon or the camera, you could tell that there was something different with its mouth, and that almost seemed like by design for the creature, because this is the one that was different from everyone else, right, and from all the others. And these skeleton wraith things that were before all came in and did their things and messed things up, and everyone knew what to expect. And in this time, they're being attacked by these dog creatures, and all of a sudden there's this one that looks like kind of different, has 3 eyes. And then it opens its maw in this like flowered out way, and these tentacles shoot out, and there's this kind of like, oh shit moment where they go flying past, they grab Scanlan, like, there's no time to react, because you're like, oh, there's a dog, oh my god, it's got 3 mouths, oh my god, what the hell's coming out of it? And then it can do what it needs to do and get out before you can kind of be like, oh, there's 3 wraiths, they all need to be killed.
Yeah. They were good fetch puppies. They had a job, and they were going to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And do what they did. Yeah. Especially to Scanlan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting thing. So Scanlan gets grabbed and pulled along for a wild ride. I actually like the fact, too, that they showed it wasn't just this, like, tongue thing or this tentacle thing that, like, shot out, and it was like a chameleon tongue that could shoot and come back. Like, he's actually carrying Scanlan with it as he's running along. And it's stiff and, like, holding his position. It's not like wobbling all over the place. He can actually control this thing as he's running. And
so it's prehensile
tentacle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they start fighting against these creatures, and Scanlan has a moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say Scanlan gets violated, but he is enjoying it too much to be able to say that he got violated, so he seemed okay with it. He seemed I should rephrase it. He seemed intrigued by it.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
I struggled with this one a little bit. I mean, I suppose in the end there was consent with this, so it isn't problematic as a whole looking at it, but the scene still made me feel a little. I questioned why this was part of the scene a little bit, minus the fact that it was Scanlan.
Yeah. See, I took it as not so much a sexual thing. I found that Scanlan made it sexual. I found because he was being he was wrapped up and he was being taken away, and it was almost kind of like, I'm going to silence you, I'm going to, like, shut up kind of thing, and, like, stuff the tentacle in his mouth to keep him quiet. And then it was him that was like, okay. And I was like, okay, so he made it sexual. It was more of a kidnapper, I'm going to quiet you down and keep you quiet as you go running off. And then it turned into this thing, Scanlan-esque. But I mean, having anything shoved into your mouth against your will is not.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where it's very. When you watch the episode just once, I think it's not necessarily something that is particularly problematic, because it does happen fairly quickly and it's used as a gag in many different ways. But it is something that I wish they had iterated on a little bit more to consider all of the aspects of it, because it is uncomfortable for a significant enough portion of an audience, I think, that the choices made for it should be clear as this was needed and this was necessary. because I think we've already had it very well established that Scanlan is a very sexual person who will do pretty much anything with pretty much anyone, that we don't need to have a moment of him having a tentacle down his throat to reiterate that, yeah, had some other person that had tentacles made a move on him, like that he would be okay with it. So it is something that I don't think was necessary, especially because I think that you could have just covered his mouth and it would have had the exact same purpose to it, minus the sexualization.
Yeah. It was shocking.
It was, this was very shock value.
And it was the forced sexualization that I think I have the problem with. It, the fact that Scanlan sexualizes things.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's Scanlan. It was just the forced nature of it that made me go, really, guys?
Especially because it becomes more problematic the more I'm thinking about it, because it is the like, okay, he was going along with it. Like, he went along with it. Doesn't change the fact that it wasn't done with consent in mind.
Yeah.
So...
And actually thinking back on it too, he wasn't yelling or screaming at the moment, was he?
Nope, not at
Not
that
really.
moment.
So it wasn't even like a gag thing. It was.
In fact, it happens, and then in the next scene that we see of him, it's not happening anymore, and he's yelling and screaming.
Yeah. So it's not, the continuity isn't good, and it wasn't necessary. It just really was not a.
That was my vote, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a fair one.
Yeah.
And a much more important bone than my bone to pick, which was just about the fact that the horses die.
Yeah.
Because it was literally just saying, like, okay, Keyleth can go and make it so that these vines grow out so that they have a bridge across the ravine. And then you see that you're coming to a dead end and there's all of these terrible things. And you can't, like, put up a wall.
But how would that have been better?
A million times?
Slammed into the wall.
I knew right away. I was like, LJ's gonna hate.
As soon as I saw them jumping off, I'm like, LJ, damn it.
Yeah, we might have been watching it, Composer and I did the like, well, if I wasn't cheering for the Briarwoods before, I sure as hell am now. Yeah. Fuckers, just let the horses die. So I was cool with the holy water disappearing.
There was something in the back of my mind made me think that the first time I watched it, it was like a teeny snippet that you saw the horses run away. And then I rewatched it like 2 or 3 times and went, you stupid.
You go clear off the cliff. But I had the same thought. I was like,
to be fair, horses are also that stupid. And it did remind me of playing like Red Dead Redemption 2, where there's a handful of horses. There's one breed in it, the Ardennes. Every other horse breed, like you ride towards a cliff and they all balk at the cliff and do the like, no, fuck no, I'm not jumping off that cliff. And they save your ass. And then you get the Ardennes and they're just like, lol, wee. And it was very much the like, oh, they got those ones from Red Dead and those were the stupid ones. But also, don't run your horses off a cliff.
Yeah.
There are better options. Keyleth.
See, I had the same thought where I was like, why doesn't Keyleth do the vines? Why doesn't she do something like... I thought of a wall, but I've just pictured the horses running smack into the wall and thought that'd be probably worse. But the other thing, though, is like, it was and they've clearly shown it to be a stone cliff that they were running across. It was a stone outcropping. There was no foliage, there was no life, there was no anything. Can Keyleth summon vines from a stone? Right? Like, can she do that? Can she bend stone? Can she move stone? Or is it only natural living organisms that she can actually work with? That was my question.
There's a forest right below the outcropping.
But did she see that, though? Because they're really up high. Could they have seen?
But does she have to see life to be able to manipulate it? Or is it a matter of feeling it?
See, these are all the questions. Because I had the same thing. I'm like, why would you let the horses die? But I'm also, in the same vein, I am happy they didn't do the silly trope of, like, spinning the wagon sideways and like skidding just to the edge and one wheel falling and then saving the horses. Like, as sad as it is to see the horses go, I'm happy that they actually followed through with what they were doing and didn't like do some kind of like the last minute daredevil save of the wagon and everything.
Yes, it makes sense to have done it. It just does not endearing me to our heroes in any way.
Well, to be fair, it was Percy and Vex.
Yeah, and Percy's my favorite out of all of them. Or, Percy when he's got the plague mask on is my favorite out of all of them.
Yeah, I want more Plague Percy. Like, I want more of that. And figuring out what that is, that was really awesome. And I've actually got a Plague Doctor mask that I use for Halloween once in a while. Oh, and I love it. It's amazing how many little children don't, though. They kind of get freaked out.
Yeah. I wonder why. It's crazy.
It's fun, especially when you're dressed all in black and a cloak. But that's, again, with that scene, though, when they're running, the Keyleth, when they do have that gap, there's the no hesitation. She sees the gap, the non-horse gap, and is able to immediately throw the vines forward, cross the gap so they can go across and go over in. So it just shows when she's not in her head, she can do some pretty wild and amazing things. It's when she has that moment to think, that moment to consider what's actually about to happen, that she locks up.
Admittedly, the vines and the horses running over the vines was the first moment that I was completely pulled out in this episode. Because horses are stupid. I love them dearly, but they're spooky, flighty, dumb creatures that no amount of training is going to make them be like, yeah, I'm going to run across these vines that are moving and I'm totally cool with it. And so that would have been like that would have been the moment for me where it would have been no, these creatures are just going to, these horses are just going to stop. The creatures are getting away and you're not getting those horses across. Like, there's nothing you can do to make that happen. But horse training realism aside, Keyleth, when she's not in her head, does an excellent job of things. Still needs to be nerfed.
But I gotta say, I find that this is one episode that breaks the mold for me from what I've said for the 4 previous episodes, where I said that they're so amazing that you forget you're watching a cartoon or an animation, and it feels like you're right in watching something almost live action. And I felt like you said, LG, there were quite a few things that kind of bumped you out of the story in this episode, and this episode really did feel like an animation. Like, there wasn't much like sense of realism in this episode. It really was I think the tentacle part of it, the vine part of it, there's just so many little things, and just the design of the dogs or the dog creatures. There's a lot of things where it's like, okay, this is definitely an animation that we're watching. I found the pacing was a little bit off from the other ones as well. That kind of broke that window as well for me.
Yeah, I agree. This is the first time that I felt like pacing wise, it was a little disjointed. In the other episodes, even in the previous episode, even though there was the moments of action and downtime, it didn't feel like it. And in this one, every time they had downtime, it felt so noticeable. When they have their campfire scene, you're like so aware of the fact that it's a campfire scene and that's what's happening right now. I can't describe why that is. Maybe it's because I'm a writer. Maybe it's because I'm a loser. I don't know. But it's just one of those things where in this episode I was like, are we done yet? It's got to be close to the end now, right? No, it's not. We're halfway through. All right.
Yeah.
This episode had a lot of pacing issues. It definitely felt like it almost was hitting like sequel syndrome of we were here, we have to get here, and nothing happens in between really, but we're going to find things to happen.
It is the saggy middle bit.
Yeah.
Right.
And they'd been doing really well with not having a really saggy middle bit, but this definitely was it had a lot of good moments in this episode, but it was less uniform. It felt much more of the like, and we are going places and doing things, and eventually, next episode, cool shit's gonna happen. We promise. Because there's a lot that is promised at the end of this episode. But
Yeah.
this is definitely an episode where the action, you know, even at the start, you go from being at Gilmore's, then you have the chase scene, and then you have campfire, and then you have, you know, Silas and Delilah, which love it, but still not actually like really helping make the episode really cohesive as far as what's going on.
Yeah.
So it definitely was a weaker episode than previous ones, I think.
That was actually my bone. One of my bones to pick with this episode was Pike. It was great. I've got an exclamation marks. Pike! It's great. But it just felt like a bell that had to be rung. I know that Billy explained the backstory behind it, but you know, the fact that we have Grog mention Pike, and then we have all the stuff happen, and in the almost like dead center of the episode, there's this little like, boom, Pike pops up. Hey, I'm here. I need help. Let me in. Okay, boom, I'm in. And then gone, and we're right back into it. I feel it would have been better if they had at least shown a little bit of Pike on the journey, shown Pike, her reaction to leaving everybody, to something. It was just seemed like a little flash, like, oh shit, we have to ring that bell of Pike. Okay, here it is. Pike's in the episode. Okay, now let's keep going. And I just found it was awkward and disjointed the way they included that scene.
I definitely have concerns with Pike's storyline that we're going to end up having her rushed into the end, that she's going to be kind of disappeared for an episode or two, and then boom, shove, she's going to be there just in time to save everyone kind of deal. And I'm concerned that that's going to be the case. I think that she's a good character to have do that by virtue of being the cleric, paladin, whatever class she is. Both of those, honestly. I have concerns about what they're gonna do with her. And yeah, I wish that this episode had been a little bit more of her journey to the temple, since it was all about journeys in this episode. Having her go somewhere, you know, to stop beforehand, and even just hearing about something that's going on that she can't help with, that she is now, you know, feeling impotent about. You know, she can't go and save so-and-so who is sick or whatever because she can't do her magic, and having moments. But yeah.
Or even a campfire
That's a
scene
personal
where we see her
Yeah.
reflecting back on leaving everyone and feeling out of sorts. Then all of a sudden she was with Seven and now she's by herself. And having that like reflection, or like another meditation by the campfire or something, like I'm away from everybody, my head is clear, I can focus, can I do something? Be like, no, it's really gone. Like I'm really in trouble here. I just found that it was just too much of a flash in the pan for Pike in this episode.
I was really hoping that, like you said, we would have a campfire scene and that we would get flashbacks of Pike joining the party, or some background information about Pike's relationship with Grog. I thought it would have been a really cool way to present this, would have been to have the Pike scene right after Grog's scene talking about Pike, and then have Pike do backstory, like give
That's
a little bit of development. So I was very disappointed with what we got from the Pike story and where it was placed.
Yeah. It would have been great if they had taken the seconds that they devoted to tentacle time with Scanlan to, you know, story time with Pike instead. And that would have been a lot less uncomfortable for people and given a lot more punch to the story.
Yeah. And that's where I'm curious what they're going to do with Pike moving forward, because there is so many ways to include her in the story. Like Billy just said, with flashbacks and things like that. There's so many ways to include her moving forward that I don't know if there really needs to be an artificial storyline fully built for what she's doing. Like, I think you can kind of go over a little bit that we know what she's doing. And so I was kind of curious how they're going to play that out. Is this going to become a really secondary storyline where we see her going through her training or retraining and reconnection to the goddess and all this stuff? or is it going to be like LJ said, all of a sudden she just appears back again? Like, I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to handle this moving forward, because so far, like you both, I'm kind of disappointed in what they've done.
Yeah.
I also I don't know where she went. Where did she go?
Where is the
like
time?
how long was this? How long was this journey? Was this something they could have done on the way?
Well, that's the thing. There was no depth or concept given to what's happening. Like where, and that's the other thing too, is the timelines don't really match up, because how long has it been? Like, it's the next day that they left their keep, right? Mm-hmm. And they went and got all their materials and took off from Gilmore and took off. So they're in the next day. But but is it the next day? How long does it take to get to the Briarwoods?
The temple, yeah.
How long does it take to get to the temple? Like, how did she get to the temple before they got to the Briarwoods? And if that's the case, if it's, 6 doors down, why didn't they just all go together for a moment? Or it'd be like, you know what, we have to go get our stuff, go fix yourself, and if you're back in time, we'll all go together. Like, the timeline is distorted as well.
Yeah.
And they're actually 3 doors down, FYI.
Oh, 3 doors down, okay.
Of course. Just like the band.
But I do like the... where do I have here? So the holy water, their stuff is all lost. They lose the book. And we have Scanlan.
And the good old puppy creature.
Yeah. I do like...
Even death doesn't stop him from completing his job. And good boy.
I think that was so cool.
I was impressed by the balance. Like, dude didn't even stagger. He was just up on his twos and just off to go.
Yeah, he was just like, nah, I've got a job to do. I'm not letting half my body drag me out here.
He was using half of his tongue as a third leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an ingenious, intrepid little pupper.
That's why he's the alpha.
Exactly. He's the one with the smarts.
Where'd the others go, though? There was like 6 dogs. They killed 2. And there's
Three
the
dogs.
Oh, they killed 3.
3 dogs. They killed 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was a lot more. Like, there was more than just the 2 dogs. There was like 3 behind them and the 2 in front. So that's at least 5. So where'd the other 2 dogs go? Or did they just flake out as soon as they got the book?
I only counted 3.
I thought there were only 3. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Their only priority was the book.
Yeah.
That was all they wanted. It was not a matter of going and killing Vox Machina. It was literally just the book, which I think goes to show that Delilah has a plan, and Delilah's plan might have changed to include Vox Machina, and that it's the I don't care whether you guys die or not, but the book is what matters.
Yeah.
And she got it.
That's what I'm curious is, does her plan actually include Vox Machina, or are they just playthings? They got in the way, and now they're just something to taunt and mess with. Like, I mean, perhaps Percy is there. That makes them more of a target.
I think with Percy being there, they're more of a plaything.
Yeah, I think that they're toys. I think at the end of the day that they're just toys. That they're irritating toys sometimes, but that's going to make everything just that much more satisfying.
Yeah. But then we do have the campfire scene where, they Scanlan tells them to shoot it in the dick, and they shoot the arrow instead, and Scanlan dies, the rope rips, and he's gone, and then we have the hand rising back up, which is a wonderful scene.
Hand.
Yeah.
But then they do, I mean, the campfire scene, again, it was awkward, it was a little bit off, but it had its place. It gave us more backstory of some of the characters. It allowed more of a connection between Keyleth and Vax, what I thought was really nice. I really liked the touch of like the flower binding the wound on his wrist.
It was very cute.
That was pretty awesome. And then we got more of the actual punch between Vex and Vax and what was happening in that scene, and the jealous sister kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we got great backstories. Like, it was just a moment of fun, of levity, to see what they've done, like their worst kills or their wildest kills. It was pretty interesting.
Again, like the Keyleths is just this, oh god, I didn't mean to have you die slowly in lava. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Go to sleep. Just go to sleep. And having everyone doing the like, oh well, that got dark fast. Thanks.
But how did throwing a dagger into a tiger man's forehead and sending him out of a window is any less dark than someone jumping into a pit of lava?
One of those is a lot quicker than the other.
You'd think lava would be pretty quick, wouldn't it?
No, lava's not quick at all.
Wouldn't the steam in your lung, like the air in your lungs, automatically just vaporize?
But it takes a long time for you to suffocate to death. And third-degree burns don't kill you quickly. No. So the problem is that you have to go into shock. And it takes time, whereas, you know, a dagger to the brainstem is pretty quick.
This is an argument I wasn't expecting to hear.
See, I would just always think that the heat of the lava, like the shock of the heat, would immediately shut your system down.
I don't think it does.
All right, so not one of us, but chat. Who in chat is volunteering to jump into lava and try to scream out what it feels like before you die? Anyone? For research purposes only.
Yeah, completely research purposes only. Thank you.
And we also need someone to take a knife to the forehead. Just to compare the two. But,
exactly.
So they do have that scene with... So we did kind of break down the Vax and Vex scene a little bit already, where they're talking about, you know, back home and stuff. And now that's the big question, though, is was that actually, just because they mentioned father, was that actually their home that they had to escape? Or was that some other thing that they're on... Like their father trying to sell them into slavery or sell them into some kind of like dark magic thing or something. Like, was it actually the home that they were missing and that they're pining for, or is it just their father was a dick and was trying to do something horrible? Because like Vax says, he's kind of like, you know, screw him. Who cares?
I mean, it definitely sounds like their dad was a dick. And we know that their actual home, and I believe their mother, died to the dragon. Yeah. So I think it is definitely an unpleasant home. I think it was like Skygorn, something like that.
Yeah, I see it so quick. I keep missing it.
And yeah, so I think
I believe it's Sigorn.
Sigorn? Yeah. So it was definitely somewhere unpleasant, judging from the way that they talk about it. So I don't think that is ever a place that Vex is like pining for. I think that she's kind of got a concept of home that she's romanticized that she wants. But it's not that place.
Because that's the thing. If the mother was killed by the dragon and they've got a father who's a little bit off and not treating them well, then that would make sense that she needs stability.
Yeah.
Right. But then we do have the really awesome thing, like the thing of them, their kills just got more ludicrous, more ridiculous and funny until
Grog's makeout session.
Yeah, until it wasn't. And that was the thing, Grog's makeout session. Like that creature that Grog killed was amazing. I love whatever that thing was. I know there's a name for it. Whatever, I can't remember what it was, but whatever it is, I freaking love that thing. And Grog had quite. I just love the fact that Grog, like the hands up in the air and the tongue hanging out of his mouth, was just such a beautiful scene.
So all of those sequences are actual things that happened in the campaign that I assume they're glossing over.
That's fantastic.
Nice.
So it's a lot of fun. I don't want to comment on any of them just in case something else comes up. But those are all points of a lot of fun that I really hope come back.
Well, that was, and then speaking of makeout sessions, then there was Scanlan with the sudden threesome that he wasn't expecting. The second head appearing.
These suddenly not quite as consensual threesome, but he was still happy with it. I like that they don't actually talk about him killing it.
Yep.
He just says that he finished, and everyone does the okay, but we didn't actually need to know any of this. This was just too much info. But there were boobs in this episode.
Yeah.
You didn't get to see Scanlan's ass, but you did get his bare chest.
Yeah. And his look of confusion.
Yes. And then you also did get him in, female human form
Yeah.
later on.
Oh, that was
get
brilliant.
the confusion.
I love that scene.
I think it was Elf. He had super
Elf?
pointy ears.
I wasn't paying attention to the ears.
Yeah.
I was paying attention to the fact he still had sideburns.
Oh, didn't notice.
And it still worked. It still,
Yeah.
the sideburns worked. Like, it was a fantastic thing. But,
Yes.
But yeah, and then we have the, and then it comes down to Percy, where it's like, what's your worst? And he says of Briarwoods, which they're all going to face. Vex didn't have a kill. That was mentioned.
Yeah.
Vax killed the tiger man, and Vex wasn't mentioned.
The Khajiit?
Killing anything.
Because let's be real, it was just a very burly Khajiit.
But it was, but yeah, she was the only one that was left out. For whatever, it could be time, it could be.
Let's be real, she was around when Vax did his kill, so maybe that was just he answered for both of them.
Could have been. Very well could have been. But then there's the buzzkill of the of Percy saying that it's the thing moving forward. But so there are two other scenes there where we do have the Kiki moment with Percy, with Vax calling Keela the Kiki and saying that he believed in her. And I love how much support they have for each other. Even though they fight and they bicker and they snap with each other, there's still so much just wholesome support. But yeah, that scroll scene with between Scanlan and Grog was amazing. And Grog's reaction to each time that he flipped, like, I laughed harder and harder each time. It was great.
I loved it. Turns him into a toad. You got handsomer.
I like it. And then
I like this form even better.
What was that, a unicorn like
abomination
thing, or like
it did not look healthy. It looked like something that needed to be put out of its misery.
And then we have the sexy Scanlan. Or the sexy female Scanlan, I guess.
Sexy female elf Scanlan. Which, not surprised. He did very well with the whole, I'm suddenly in the other gender's body, because he's also just a very chill person with everything.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah.
But I do like I've got, Singborn, or whatever it's called, their place.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the fact that they had a moment of levity. Like we talk about in writing, you can't just have constant uptick and pacing. It's got to come up, it's got to come down, there's got to be fluctuations in what you're doing. I just found, again, this one was, I think maybe because it was split over two. They started it and then they broke away. I think it was to Pike, and then they went back. Mm-hmm. So like you said, the positioning of Pike was really odd, where they're having this campfire scene. There's this moment between Vax and Keyleth, and then it goes to Pike, and then it comes back to them at the campfire again, just talking about their most wildest kills. So again, the whole thing was disjointed. But I do really like the cutscene with Percy laying there spinning the barrel of his pepper box. Then we see the names being engraved as he goes along, and then to zoom in. And that, I find some of the cutscenes are just so beautifully done in this. They actually put a lot of thought into it. Still not as good as my favorite is the one with Gilmore and the book zipping across. I thought that was beautifully done.
Yeah,
but
that one was beautiful. But I did really enjoy having him just flipping, and the level of obsession that shows is so unhealthy and so cool to see. And so it was very excellent.
And the perfect engraving. Like, those letters are gorgeous.
Yeah. I am betting magic on all of that. I'm betting magic for that. I'm assuming that the names are very much to do with the, deal with the devil that he made for the rest of his magic, as far as the plague mask and whatnot. So I'm excited to see more of that and more of that explained in the next few episodes. But also, I quite enjoyed the short little scene when you get the book delivery and, dinner time with Silas and Delilah spoken about with their lovely set of dinner guests,
Yes.
especially the tiny child that they hang out with for a little bit.
And the foreshadowing in that is absolutely
Oh, it was
gorgeous.
beautiful.
I loved it.
Like
Again,
handing the amulet.
yeah. Yes,
Just,
you won a prize, and it's, yeah,
yeah,
beautiful scene.
like
And then again, we get to see
beautiful.
that the tutor and whatever the other guy was really are just like fully engrossed in their servitude right now,
Yeah.
and bringing in these other people and all of that.
Gotta have your minions.
Yep. But then we have, yeah, Vex warning Vax, and that line I liked as well when Vex and Vax were talking, and he's like, knowing that there's a risk but still moving forward sometimes is like a sign of
Courage.
courage or bravery. And she says, well, it's also a sign of stupidity, which is true. I mean, there's a very fine line between courage and stupidity,
Yes.
and maybe that's why Grog is so ready to run in on stuff.
No, I think Grog has taken one too many hits to the head. And that's why.
Grog is
Like-
definitely rising the ranks in my as a favorite character. Like the more depth they give to him, the more they show him, and it's surprisingly enough, like he's actually got a fair bit of lines compared to some of the other characters. Like normally the dumb oafish one is, or the dumb oafish one is kind of the one that's more quieter in the background, and Grog actually has a fair bit of vocabulary and like a fair bit of things that he says in each episode.
He's pretty prominent.
Yeah, like he talks more than Pike. He talks more than Keyleth usually. And I mean, especially Pike in this episode, obviously. But I mean, in general, he tends to have talk more than Pike. It'd be interesting to see the breakdown of the lines for each of the characters. I'm sure someone has done that somewhere, where you can see who said the most in each episode or throughout the entire series. I'd like to find that metric somewhere.
I would just like to hear Silas and Delilah talk more, preferably to each other, because they're also freaking adorable
Yeah.
and have fantastic voice actors that I could listen to just read the phone book and I'd be perfectly content and happy. So more of that, please.
Yeah, I love their character design. Both of them. Like
Yes.
Silas really does have, well, actually, and also Delilah. They both, like we kind of alluded to before, really have that gargoyle throwback for the design of the characters. It's just, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so endeared to them, because it just brings this sense of nostalgia when I see them, and I see them interacting with each other. I really have to binge Gargoyles again at some point.
Oh, I need to.
That was
Well,
it's
every
amazing
time
that,
I'm watching this, I'm just like, I need to do this again.
yeah, because it's great to be able, like, for Gargoyles, for example, where you look back on it. I really enjoyed it. I loved every episode. I saw it, like I was enthralled. I loved it. But as a kid, you don't really pick up on everything. And now looking back, it's like, oh, I really have to go back and look at it again. Like I actually really enjoyed that. I couldn't say like how the storyline went all the way through and pick out at the time of why I liked it so much, but there's some really good stuff in that show that I'd like to go back to.
I'm excited to watch it again at some point. There's
Yeah.
too many other things right now, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah. And then we have the description of Percy describing Whitestone. With that whole thing kind of reminded me of the ways in Wheel of Time. Whereas this beautiful, lush kind of thing, and then the evil comes in and it just turns into this corrupted, really awesome looking thing that's a complete opposite perversion of what it once was, with the luscious trees and the sun tree that was growing everything. But yeah, it was just, that scene was just beautiful. The description of what it was and how everything looked out, or how everything looked, was great. And again, that moment of, you can tell he's kind of moved when he's done talking, and then the group gathering back around him and doing the, we're here for you. We're going to do this. We're going to make it right.
Yeah. And then getting to Whitestone. And I appreciate Scanlan again for the Percy, your town is creepy as shit. Like, yep. This is what you all should have been expecting. Vampire Town.
Yeah. What else would you expect? I wasn't expecting the Doomsday Giant walking past. The first time I saw
the Attack on
Doomsday,
Titan giant?
Yeah, like, but he looked like the silhouette looked like Doomsday from the Superman comics.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. To me, when I saw it, it was like the loincloth thing it was wearing with the fur sticking, and then there was the band. There was a few things, and I'm like, that's really... Like, the first, as the instant I saw it, I'm like, that's Doomsday. A very tall Doomsday.
The lipless grin was just very Titan from Attack on Titan.
Absolutely.
So I definitely had an immediate aversion, which I loved, because that show was actually it's one of the few shows that is actually very much, when I started watching it, that really got under my skin. As in the, like, I had to go walk the dogs after, like, I think binging 3 or 4 episodes, and I was just like, I genuinely feel unsafe going outside right now. Props to you guys. So it was great seeing, the giant walk through and just immediately having the, like, the octopus gif. Nope. Because nope. But it was an interesting design choice to have it be so much of a callback to other characters, whether Doomsday or Titans, to kind of do some of the work for you or for them of these things are terrifying.
Yeah.
And they should be terrifying.
I want to see them out of the shadows. I want to see a silhouette. I want to see this thing. Like, I'm really looking forward to them coming face to face with this thing, which I'm sure they're going to.
Yeah.
At some point. Like, you can't introduce something like that and just have it, like, go pick dead rotten flowers in the field. There's got to be more of a thing for
you
it.
Could. I trust they're not going to make a poor choice like that, though.
That is true. But yeah, there's the mistrusting people, and they were going for the holy woman, the keeper Yasmin.
Yenin.
Yenin. Yes, Yenin.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to when I wrote that, I was like, I'm going to mispronounce that because I wrote it so sloppy. And I was right.
Yeah.
Speaking of poor choices. But, and then we have... So they're freaked out. They're creeping through this creepy town. And then Percy sees the tree.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah. Welcome home.
Yeah.
I love it. That is an excellent message. And it's very to the point.
Yeah.
It's pretty messed up.
It is completely fucked up. Let's be real.
That's what I was confused, though, is that they were talking, because Delilah kept talking about the... why did the word just blank on my mind? The ritual, the ceremony. So was that actually a ceremony involving the people that were killed, or was that just a clothing to put them in, like they just dress them up to look like that, and is the ceremony something else, or was there some kind of other thing tied into this, like these things are gonna drop out of the tree and attack them all of a sudden?
I think that it was just the ceremony that they're talking about. I got the impression was the bigger overarching plan, and then because they were interrupted by the little troll dude doing the "here are your dinner guests," that I presume that there's a difference. They're still prepping and getting ready for the big bad, summoning the Whispering One or whatever it's going to be. And that this dinner was just the message, because she knows that she didn't kill them, because she didn't get the wraiths didn't come back with the book. So she's just set out the welcome wagon for them for whenever they get there, because she knows they're coming.
And she also doesn't know that Pike's not with them, because Pike was included in that whole thing. So she's good, but she's not that good.
Yeah. You have to give her some problems. I mean,
yes.
How would she know?
The half dog didn't talk.
Yeah, no. He was busy doing everything else.
Yeah. But I also really like, I mean, that scene was very, like the close up of the feet and then the zooming back and the whole thing. And I really loved the choice of them having a silent reaction, looking and staring at everything, the screen going black, and then you hear Keyleth, "It's us." And I thought that was so much more impactful than having them go, "Oh my God, it's us," and panicking. It was just this silent reaction, black screen, "It's us."
Yeah.
I thought that was
Because
fantastic.
it hit home so much more of how deeply disturbing what they found was, because again, it wasn't well, we went and we found some gnomes, we found some, half elves, we found enough people that we just happened to throw them in your clothing and we strung them up and there you go. It's like, no, they have an entire family here with like children butchered, an old man butchered, like all of these things that it was no, they would all still be alive if it weren't for you guys, because she needed somebody that looked like you. And it's deeply disturbing having people killed because of you. And it's deeply disturbing to see effigies of yourself strung up like that. It's beautiful psychological warfare right there.
Oh yeah.
And to take it even a step further, Percy might know this family. Like, yeah. He hasn't been gone for so long that he might not know that they have kids now, but these people might be people that he knows and he's seeing dressed up as him and his party now, hung from a tree. Like, that is like psychological torture, man. 101 right there.
Oh yeah, it was messed up. Like my brain can come up with some pretty dark stuff when I'm writing. And that impressed me. Like it's rare I'll see something in a book or in a movie that I'm like, oh, that's really like dark and twisted. That's awesome. You're like, oh yeah, that's a pretty cool concept. But this was one where I was like, holy shit. Like it actually took me aback for a moment. It was deeply, deeply twisted.
Well, I mean, so nice. Kids aren't supposed to die.
Yeah.
Like that's just like, the unwritten rule. Kids aren't supposed to die. You can't show kids hung from a tree. Well, gets the point across, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and that is the thing, is like it's an unwritten kind of rule of just media of you don't show children dead. You certainly don't highlight them being dead like they did here. But, it also is just, I'm starting to lose my train of thought. It is just a additional level of depravity that you already knew that the Briarwoods were capable of killing and torturing children. Yep. But you didn't know how far that went. If it was just doing it when necessity says that that's what you do, because that the DeRollo family was in the way. And, they were using torturing children by their minions to be a bonding exercise or whatever, like whether or not. Oh, Billy. Wrong time to start drinking. But, you didn't, it was not laid out quite so fully, the depths of depravity that they will go to for protecting what has become theirs. And it does certainly go to show that the fight that Vox Machina has ahead of them is going to be a very challenging one. And it does show, like, there's a good reason too then why people at the start of when they walked into town were, so suspicious of them. Because we don't know how long those people had been hanging in that tree. Mm-hmm. So if you live in Whitestone and you saw those people strung up, and then 3 days later, people that look like those people walk into town, you're not necessarily going to feel terribly charitable towards the people that got your neighbors killed in that manner that you've been having to stare at for days. So it helps with a lot of different levels to this psychological warfare, which is why, again, it's this is excellently, beautifully done and terribly fucked up. So again, go Team Briarwood.
Yeah. Well, that was actually just brought two things to mind for me, because that's a really good point that you make on that. But it's also, the thing is, if you look at their minions, if you look at the people that are surrounding them, and where they live, and all of this stuff, the only beauty in their lives are each other. Mm-hmm. Silas and Delilah are the only 2 points of beauty in all of Whitestone. All the ground is burned black. The trees are all dead. Everything is gone, and their minions are grotesque, kind of looking, or disheveled, or like sunken in, or whatever it is. Yeah. So it's interesting to see that they've kept themselves elevated as the only 2 pillars of beauty in the entire thing. But am I misremembering? Because they showed the sun tree, they showed everything, they showed the entire Whitestone, and they showed how burned out and blackened everything was. The tree the family was hung from was green, wasn't it?
No.
It didn't have foliage?
Nope.
Okay, maybe
it's just very twiggy.
Okay, yeah. Maybe my brain was... Because I know you also didn't see the full top. I thought there was maybe... But my brain does like to jump things around. But yeah, so there is no... Especially now that there was no green on that. There is no... The only spot of color and life and beauty is the Briarwoods themselves.
Yeah. Well, and it is interesting, again, when you are in such a terrible living situation, I have to wonder what the propaganda is. You know, that even the child, when they arrive for dinner, the kid is not crying. She's not terrified. Like, you can see the parents are definitely doing the, like, this is probably not a good thing, but maybe it's gonna be okay. I'm not sure. But like, the little girl is just awestruck. You know, she's not doing the, oh my God, I'm gonna die. She hasn't been told things that should make her afraid of these people or defiant of these people. She is excited. She's interested. She isn't afraid of asking Delilah questions. And all of that, which just, it shows that even as cruel and awful as the living situation is, there is a separation between the people and the Briarwoods, that they're keeping up appearances, keeping that beauty, and keeping their palace gorgeous and all of that. Definitely is creating, I think, probably some level of Stockholm Syndrome attachment to them. That basically is, there are a lot of really messed up people in this town that might even be on Team Briarwood just out of a need to have something to hold on to, even if it's not a good thing.
Well, and in the propaganda, they're the saviors, right? Because Percy's family took out, the kids cleaned out the coffers and took all the money, and they all disappeared. And it was the Briarwoods that were the saviors. So, which I find, again, that kind of dichotomy in these scenes that so often gets written, where everything around you is black, bleak, and death, and there's nothing growing in the fields, and everyone is starving, but you're still looking at these people as your saviors.
Propaganda is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really not. It's absolutely awful and terrible. That's going to be a bad clip.
It's amazing what it can do. No, but it's amazing what propaganda can do.
Yes.
And that's where you have to be so careful when you're looking at anything major that's happening. It's easy to forget that, you know, the good side has propaganda too. The good side is trying to make themselves look better than the bad side. They're trying to make themselves seem like they're being more victorious than the bad side, or they're not being as hurt as they actually are. They've got that tough exterior thing. And the other side of the coin of that is good versus bad depends on which side of the coin you're holding.
Yeah.
Right? Because the bad side's not always like, oh, we're the baddies, we're gonna go do stuff. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Like,
yeah. Exactly.
Speaking of all this fun stuff and children and trees and stuff, you want a fun inside baseball tidbit?
Always.
The little girl that asks all the questions is actually Scanlan's real daughter.
That's
or,
adorable.
Sam Riegel's daughter.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That is also going to be like the thing that she gets to boast about now is the like, I got killed on Vox Machina.
Well, that's the thing I find, like, when I've always been a big reader and a consumer of media and stuff like that, and different things, when different things in life happen, they alter your perspective and they change how you view things. And none so more major in my life than having my daughter. She's almost 11 months old, and I find now, like, my perception and my concept of life has shifted so heavily in so many ways because of having this little girl. And this scene really hit hard. Having her ask those questions and having how this all played out and stuff like that really hit a note. And I'm kind of curious what it would have been like, how I would have reacted to this scene if I had not had my daughter yet. If I was looking at this and not having had any children. Like, even my wife was saying that she's read a book that was, now when she would read books of mother-daughter relationships, she was always the daughter looking up. And now when she reads those same books again, it's an entirely different perspective because she's a mother looking down and looking at it from a different angle. So yeah, I'm just kind of, that was one thing that really hit me as well, was that if I didn't have my daughter, how would I have reacted to this scene? And that kind of shows that how different lived experiences can really have a different impact of things that you're looking at and things that you're taking in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's amazing that was his daughter.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Does that mean I have to kill my daughter in some weird show somewhere?
Yeah.
I'll offer my daughter up too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's by the
Obviously.
Briarwoods, then I think that's just like a badge of honor. Like, if you have a kid, I did, but let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So again, a great episode. Yeah. You?
I was just thinking, it was like, I haven't planned on killing any children, on like any of the named kids that end up in my series. I don't think I actually had planned on killing any of them, and that definitely needs to change.
Uh-oh.
I'm just thinking, I've written books for kids and I've written these other things, but in my psychological thriller and in my new science fiction, I don't have any children.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that I did in this one, actually, to make one of the main villains into someone that you felt more conflicted about, that you as the reader would have more trouble hating in some ways, is when I rewrote some of her chapters, I went and made sure that, like, there's a baby that happens, and she makes a point of saving this baby when she goes to and murders the parents. And it was just a moment of like, yeah, even I didn't go to the child murdering side of things yet. And I've just realized what kid I can kill. So now we're good. Thank you.
Go. Kids are going to be murdered. That actually reminds me, on a side note, I don't
Poor
know if I
Billy.
should put this in this part, or if we should wait till after we cut credits, but we've probably all seen that thing of leopards that will, like, find a stranded orphan baby monkey and bring it up into a tree. You've seen the video of, like, the leopard taking care of this baby monkey up in the tree and, like, licking it and not killing it. And at first, the story told behind it was this whole thing of, like, look at, like, the leopard is so nice, it's picking up this baby and it's taking care of it because it's orphaned and all this other stuff. And for the longest time, that was the story told behind this video, until the more in-depth concept of it came behind. And that's actually a hunting tactic. They will find and steal an orphan, or find an orphaned baby monkey or steal a baby monkey and climb up into a tree. So when it's crying, it attracts the other monkeys to it. So it's bait. The leopard's not using it to keep it and take care of it. It's using it as living bait to get its real meal.
Yeah.
Which is a lot more
Because
twisted of a
cats
story.
are assholes. Like, cats are assholes. Of course it's what it's doing.
Yeah.
They're lovable, adorable assholes, but they're assholes.
They are. All right, let's wrap up this
You have
part, then
an
we'll
opinion.
continue our chat. So, any last thoughts on this episode of The Fates Journey? Of one thing I got to say, I love all the titles that they've done for each episode. Have been bang on, like, beautiful titling. I love it. Any final?
It's a weak episode, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
There's good moments,
for ep-
but overall week.
Ready for episode 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go.
Not to say, it wasn't enjoyable. There were some really poignant points. There were some really good scenes. But overall, it was fractured, disjointed. It was including things for the coolness factor or the shock value factor of some of the stuff. Yeah. And I think they definitely could have. There was a bit of a swing and a miss on this one. It wasn't a complete miss. Let's say they didn't strike out, they went foul.
Yeah.
For that. But
I'm not American enough to make baseball jokes.
I'm not American at all when I just did it.
Yeah. Yeah. You actually have a baseball team, though, nearby you.
I actually used to play
Baseball's
baseball.
on strike right now, so we're not making any jokes.
Is it on strike?
True.
Yeah, they're on strike right now. They're going to start canceling games. Oh, they started canceling games today.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Do they just need a better pitcher or better batters?
They just need a better contract.
So we got Billy with the
man.
burst out laughing thing, the shtick that we have, and then we've got killing LJ with the dad jokes.
Yep. Okay, Billy, we have to figure out our way to get Travis.
Okay. He's got a pretty thick suit of armor over there, so I don't know.
That's because of the sword.
We'll
Wherever
find
it is.
a way.
I can't. I think my camera's mirrored or not. I don't know if it's mirrored or not. Whatever. It just screws me up trying to point at stuff. I can never figure it out. All right. So everyone, thank you very much for joining us for this episode of After the Roll: The Legend of Vox Machina, Season 1, Episode 5, Fate's Journey. We will be back next week on Monday, breaking down Episode 6, and that'll be the halfway mark for us, which is going to be a lot of fun. So with that, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this episode. We're going to continue chatting a little bit afterwards. But as for this is wrapping up this episode of After the Roll. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to my co-hosts. And we'll see you all again next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.